It has so much sweet. Because you can just keep going. And then, every Thursday, I was excited.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Is the microphone
Hi, Mary.
working?
Yes,
Seems
it
to be.
is.
I'm hearing myself, so. Thank you all for coming today, and a warm welcome to you on this sunny Sunday, a perfect day for walking. I'm Mary Sussman, co-chair with Liz Harris Hodge, sitting over here, of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee of the League of Women Voters of Milwaukee County. The League is a nonpartisan grassroots political organization established in 1920, which advocates for informed and active participation in government. All League advocacy is underpinned by positions that have been carefully studied and reviewed before they are adopted. The League has positions that have long supported equal rights for all under state and federal law, regardless of race, color, gender, religion, national origin, age, sexual orientation, or disability. In 2018, the League adopted a DEI policy which reads in part, LWV is an organization fully committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion in principle and in practice. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are central to the organization's current and future success in engaging all individuals, households, communities, and policymakers in creating a more perfect democracy. Today we hear from Karen and Jennifer Lemke, sisters and co-authors of a new book called Easy Walks and Paddles in Milwaukee. Jennifer and Karen both live in walkable neighborhoods. Jennifer in Menderes Park and Karen in Bayview. When she is not recombobulating, I think that's her word, herself on urban trails, Karen supports climate solutions for a fair future and teaches music. Jennifer works in healthcare, maintains a robust urban vegetable garden, and volunteers with local environmental cleanup efforts. Both Karen and Jennifer are League members. Today's discussion will be moderated by another League member, Dorothy Dean, founder and chief executive officer of Disability Justice. Dorothy has previously served as an elected official for Milwaukee County. She is a lifelong advocate for public policy that improves the quality of life of every person and has served on many nonprofit community boards. The Sisters Lemke have written a fascinating and useful handbook for navigating more than 50 parks that are accessible to people with disabilities, seniors, and people with young children, and everybody else. The book provides a wealth of helpful information about the bathrooms, benches, nearby eateries, and farmers markets, and intriguing tidbits about a location's ethnic and cultural history. All parks that the Lemke spotlight are accessible by public transportation. As they note in their book, Frederick Law Olmsted, the great landscape architect who designed Riverside Lake and Washington parks in Milwaukee, among many others around the country, wanted all of his parks to be accessible by public transportation. Before beginning his career as a landscape architect, Olmsted documented the horrors of slavery for the New York Times. His early experience as a reporter informed his ideals about park design, accessibility, and the need for public green spaces to help the nation and individuals heal from trauma after the Civil War. Many recent studies have confirmed that spending time in green spaces have multiple health benefits, including reducing stress and lowering blood pressure. The benefits of walking were extolled more than 2,000 years ago by Hippocrates, who said, if you are in a bad mood, go for a walk. If you are still in a bad mood, go for another walk. In addition to providing helpful venues for walking, our green spaces help us celebrate nature and honor democracy. Our parks welcome everyone as they envelop us with greenery, blossoms, wildlife, and a sweet patch of serenity and beauty. I'd like to thank Liddy Collins Segrist, over there in the back at the registration table, Shirley Halloran, Barbara Rasmussen, Ken Bernoska, Colleen Golonsky, who's not here, she sent her daughter to bring treats though, Shin Lee, who's doing our live stream, and Susan Check, who brought treats for helping with this program. I'd also like to thank Outpost Natural Foods for the generous donation of 80 organic bananas for today's event. We have lots, so before you leave, grab a couple and enjoy them at home. After the program, books will be for sale over here. Time permitting, there will be time for a bit more mingling and some refreshments. If I may ask you to put away your chair after the program, that would be much appreciated. We need to put the room back in order and leave the premises by 3:45 according to the library's rules. Thank you so much for coming. I'm sure you will enjoy this discussion about easy walks and paddles in Milwaukee. So without further ado, I present Jennifer and Karen Lemke and Dorothy Dean. Thank you.
Can anybody hear me in the back?
Low.
No, it's not on a much louder.
Is it bad? Yeah. Why don't you just give me that one? Yeah, we can pass it around. Thanks. Hi, I've been really pleased to be able to meet with Karen and Jennifer through Zoom. It wasn't the greatest, doing it on Zoom, but what's really wonderful is being able to be here now and to be in a room together with a bunch of people.
Use your outside voice. It doesn't seem to be working.
I think those are
Right,
rules.
we're showing.
You gotta have it in the right position for it to catch you.
Okay.
Now?
There, magic.
Oh, okay.
Magic Mary.
We didn't need microphones at our Zoom meeting. I guess we had them ready. Anyway, I'm just really, really pleased to be able to participate in this today because for a variety of reasons, and you'll hear more and more about it. I'd like to set a little bit of the context. The room that we're in right now is a public venue. It's tax supported. That's what you pay your taxes for, libraries. And you also pay your taxes for every single park that's in this book. And that's why I don't mind paying taxes, and I don't complain to my elected rep unless it's about a very specific tax. But that is what we do to build community. And what I tell people to do, especially, young adults, make some memories. Take a younger brother or sister, or, your kids, if you've got them, take them to a park and go with them and show them things that they might not otherwise see. And I think that is probably one of the best things you can do with our parks. We have a park system that rivals state park systems. And there's a list every year that's made of the best parks in the country. Milwaukee never makes that list. And that's probably okay, because we all know it's there, and we use it. The reason they don't is because of the golf courses that are in the parks. Golf courses were something that the socialists who put this together and put it all together way back in the early part of the 1900s, they saw that as a way to get kids out of crowded housing and into open air spaces. And that's why they did it. I think that's a really noble sentiment, and I think it tells us a lot about what we should be looking for the future. So think more on the future. And right now, I think Jennifer and Karen are the ones that know the parks better than I do now, because they've been to more of them. And they've done a tremendous amount of work, and this is just a tremendous book to have. If you don't already do it, get a book to put someplace public, so that people can pick it up and take a look at it and maybe visit a park by themselves. So I would like to introduce you to Jennifer and Karen Lemke, bonded by blood.
So I'll start by telling how we got involved in this project, and our editor, Marjorie Turner-Holman, she actually has a series of books called Easy Walks that she started writing after a journey with her own personal health and some mobility challenges. And they're kind of focused on regions of the country that are in the Northeast, but she met Karen, and at the time I had been telling Karen that my wife and I were trying to explore as many parks in Milwaukee as possible. It started during COVID, and just that urge to like explore new places and things, but not get on a plane or a train, and just kind of realizing through like Google Maps, basically that they're everywhere, they're just everywhere in Milwaukee. So when Karen met Marjorie, and Marjorie said, I'm thinking about doing an urban series, Karen was, yeah, like, we should do that, we can be your Milwaukee people, and my sister can help us out, and that's how I got involved in this project, is thanks to Karen and Marjorie. Do you want to talk more about that, Karen?
That was a great introduction about that. I'm looking at something that it looks like a it is a PowerPoint. Let me see if I can. Hey, I want to start by giving you a little access to basically the book digitally. And if you happen to have a smartphone, if you, oh no, don't do that. This happened last time too. I'm still learning how to use technology. Okay. One of the ways that we put the book together is we used our cell phones to take notes, and using the Google Forms and dumping it into a Google spreadsheet. And because I had the book written in a spreadsheet and I had the addresses for each of the parks, I was able to create a Google map. And so on this image right here is the Google map that you will have access to if you point your phone to that, and it'll open up on your phone. And so basically you will have all the content of the book, and you can kind of search through it. While we're talking, I'm a little ADD and I prefer to have things to do with my hands, or like, I want to know more about that, well, talk about that. So anyway, I wanted to get that out there, if you're out and about, you can just pull this up and find some information about the walks and paddles. I'm going to wait just a moment because I can still see some phones pointing at the screen here. Do you want to say anything about that, the process of how we collected the data, so to speak, for each chapter of the book?
Karen put together the Google spreadsheet, which was super handy because we were at times visiting like 2 and 3 parks in a day. So to not get home and say, well, no, which one was it that didn't have a bathroom again? So that was handy to have all of the data and to get it all, right in one go as soon as we left the park. And then that kind of transitioned into, we're hungry now that we've gone to 2 or 3 parks. So, and we don't know this neighborhood because we're exploring a brand new neighborhood for the first time. So that's how we got the idea to include like a nearby snack or restaurant recommendation, or vegetarian leaning. This is going to a lot of fish fry every now and then, but we both care about eating, healthy and eating local. And so the same way there's such a thing as a food desert, I was telling Karen, I feel like there's a thing like a takeout desert where certain neighborhoods have restaurants, but it's all like cheap fast food, it's all fried, like where are the vegetables? So that kind of evolved into like seeking out the healthiest place that we would be willing to eat in every little quadrant of the city. And then, is there more? I think that's
And I just want to express how much fun it was to go, like every week on Thursdays, I would meet up with my sister. I'm like, where are we going to go this week? And I get to go for a walk with someone I love. And it was joyful. I mean, I've worked on some other writing projects that were not as fun as getting to literally go for a walk in the park. very special to me in that respect as well.
I'll add that I've just always been a parks enthusiast. Like at every level, I've got the National Park souvenir passport, and that's comes out every time we're planning a bigger trip. I'm really proud of the Wisconsin State Park Service. I've been to state parks in other states and been like, oh, these people don't love their parks as much as we do at home. And then, like I said, with COVID, it just brought me into like, wow, like Milwaukee, it's really playing on the level as was Wisconsin and the National Park Service. And so wanting to write a book to help promote that and get other people to see what we see and love it the way we do was very appealing.
I thought of two more things I wanted to say in that respect. One is that we also wanted to finish it by Halloween, and at some point at the end of August, I realized, oh my gosh, we're going to have to do 30 parks in 30 days. So September is when we were like, okay, here we go. And special thanks to my partner Marty over here. I think Labor Day weekend we maybe went to 10, I don't know, 8, 3 here, and then, you know, tomorrow morning we're going to go to that one, and we'll go to another one on Monday. So I appreciate all the people who participated in this journey. And
beautiful weather though, so it was a pleasure.
Yeah, very nice weather that time of year, as you all know. And then another timing thing about writing this book is we were thinking about this summer and the Republican National Convention, and I was thinking how people outside of Milwaukee are trying to tell us who live in Milwaukee what Milwaukee is, and I wanted to kind of get out ahead of that messaging and say, this is what Milwaukee means to me, this is what Milwaukee means to us, and I hope that comes through in the book as well.
Totally agree. I mean, we're about to experience the biggest tourism that probably, I mean, they're saying like 100,000 people for the RNC might come to Milwaukee. Like, without hosting the Olympics, I can't imagine a bigger event. So it's an opportunity to share what we love with a bunch of not just Republicans, but like journalists. It was an opportunity to share the city that we love with a huge audience this summer.
No, that's okay.
We talked in advance about some of the questions that I had, and I figured that when they go through their routine, I'll just pick up on the things they don't say. That makes it easier for me. Because we talked about a few things, and quite a few things actually. It was a very interesting Zoom meeting, one of the best I've had. But I think show us the pictures, and yeah, I will pick up when I need to. Okay.
Well, then this is what I hope is sort of a fun part of it. These are photos, so there are about 50 chapters in the book, and there's a photo for each park. And so this one's sort of a gimme, right? You can probably guess which park this one is. Humboldt Park in Bayview. This is close to where I live. But some of them, I hope, will be a little more challenging for you. So this slide is, I wanted to tell a little bit about the way we structured the book. So a couple slides ago, you could see all of those dots in different places. And then I realized, oh, we need to have sort of a superstructure of how to organize this. And we talked about quadrants, and there ended up being 5 quadrants. So they're quintrants or something like that. But we decided that there's a northwest side, the north central, or the Milwaukee River. Of course, Milwaukee is built on the confluence of 3 rivers, the estuary, the Milwaukee estuary, river estuary. And so it is organized around the water. There is the Milwaukee River, this is my handwriting, the Menominee River, and on the south side we have the Kinnickinnic River. And then the lake shore has its own section. And when we designed each section like that, we were also able to make a grid of different features in each of those parks. So the 5 sections of the book has a page like this that will tell you if there's information about indigenous Milwaukee, or if it's one of the oldest parks in the city and whatnot. So we thought that might be things that people would be interested in.
Karen,
Yes?
I just noticed on the right-hand side, it says presentation type self-playing.
Yeah,
If you took it off of self-playing, then you could enlarge the screen,
let's do it
Yeah.
that way. Let's try it that
make
way.
it a lot bigger.
Thank you. Okay,
Fingers
Let's-
crossed.
Oh, there we go.
thank you, Marty.
We need him.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Okay.
Every once in a while, I use
I appreciate that. Okay, so here's one to guess. Which park? Anyone recognize this park? It is one of the oldest parks in the city. That is one of, that's a good guess. It's one of the oldest ones in the city. It's just north of that, along a scenic boulevard of the same name. That was also designed by Olmsted to connect the beautiful parks with boulevards. Sherman Park is on Sherman Boulevard, straight up from Washington Park. I got excited about when I had that grid of dots. I was like, why do all these seem to be on diagonals? And I was trying to figure out what's going on with the diagonal streets throughout Milwaukee. And they're named things like Appleton and Fond du Lac and Beloit. And not only do they connect the modern cities of Milwaukee to those places, but before Solomon Juneau, before the settler colonial state came and imposed itself on the city of Milwaukee, there were footpaths that connected all of these places. So I've been spending a lot of time thinking about the ancient footpaths that underlie the structures of colonialism, the things that have brought a lot of good, but also we may want to rethink if we're trying to design for a livable future and streets that aren't so fast that they are dangerous for people to navigate. And so I kind of have fantasies of us being able to walk along these green footpaths along Fond du Lac Avenue and Wind Lake Avenue and different places. That's me. Where is this? It does say Fond du Lac. It is on Fond du Lac Avenue. It is related to, well, I mean, it's a stop on the Underground Railroad. The Brown.
Is it Johnson?
It is close to the Cleopatra Johnson. They've recently renamed that park. It's like right across the street from that at the MCTS Central Hive there.
17th.
At
So would this
17th.
be the Harriet Tubman Park?
Excuse me?
Oh, Harriet Tubman was the guess, which is a really, really good guess.
That is a good guess, but this is closer into town. This is along Fond du Lac Avenue, across from Feeding America.
Oh.
And so it's not terrifically easy to access, and that was something, when you write a book about accessibility, you realize, oh, this is not as accessible as I thought it was going to be. You kind of had to dash across traffic in order to snap this photo. Walking in the park is a climate solution. It's low carbon and for all the things that have already been said today. This the area here is currently under construction. That's a little hint for you.
Washington Park.
Washington Park. The bridge crossing. This one's another gimme, the Beer Line Trail. Some of the trails that we were, there were some rails to trails conversions in the city of Milwaukee and also in Waukesha County and along the Ice Age Trail and a lot of good things like that. There's another photo like that in here. How about this one?
That's the South Park. South Shore? It's on the south side, I know
It is on the south
that. Where that
side.
beach is, because I go there, but I
This is the most southernmost, it's not technically in Milwaukee anymore.
Is that Grant? Is that Grant?
It's Grant Park Beach, yeah. It's one of Marty and my favorite places. And that's where that's a great beach to go to, not too, and you can, this whole thing is wheelchair accessible out to this point, and looking back at the city. And those are locks of love that people have attached. Jenny took this one.
Yes, I took this picture. So this isn't a park, but a park way to put a hint out there. Greenway's a good guess, but that is not where this is.
North or south?
West, yeah, northwest. I took this on a 6-mile bike ride from one of the northernmost parts of the parkway in the city into the Tosa Village.
KK River Park.
So,
That's Menominee River Park.
there it is. It's the Menominee River Parkway. That's my favorite picture in the whole book.
It's a
It's
beautiful
just
area.
like I was literally riding a bike, and I had just been taught the quick camera access hack on my phone, so I just.
Very nice, yeah. Not particularly wheel accessible park, probably the least wheel accessible park in the city.
Is that Humboldt?
Seven Bridges.
No, it's 7, I heard someone say 7 bridges. So this is along the South Shore, south of South Shore Park, in 7 Bridges Park. Yeah, 7 Bridges. Grant Park, thank you. This is another kind of gimme because you can see part of the signage here, but that's the Hone Bridge. And we were trying to document all of the put-ins for a kayak or canoe. And so this is the riverfront launch site that is in the Kinnickinnick River Basin, not too far from Summerfest and Lakeshore State Park.
One of the things we talked about early on in the Zoom meeting, and Karen brought it up, is that the paddles really are not accessible. It's hard to get in and out of vehicles when they're floating on the water. So that's something for a future book that will tell us that things have changed and that there's been a way to figure out how to do it in at least one park. That would be just so wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. But, like Karen said before, when you start looking at accessibility, you start running into all kinds of problems. And that's because people with disabilities, there's no one right way to do anything. And people with disabilities can have all kinds of disabilities. One disability, 10 disabilities, affecting different parts of their life, So what I think we want to use the book for is start making notes, buy one of those books. Start making notes in it every time you go to a park about what you really enjoyed about that park and who you brought with you. That would be a nice diary for you. Put in there who you brought with you, but also anything you think that could be done better. And there's lots of suggestions that I'm sure that will form in your mind as you go through the parks.
Dorothy, I'm so glad you brought that up. Yesterday I was at I was at Lincoln Park at dawn for the water walk, the Sturgeon water walk that was happening. And Cheryl Nen, who is the Milwaukee River Keeper, we have a person who is the holder of knowledge about our river system and the area of concern and all of the ways that pollution are being addressed and not being addressed. And I shared a copy of this book with her and her staff, and she said that they have been talking with schools about students who are seeking accessible experiences. When before they would say, "Oh, I guess there really isn't anything for us that the River Keeper, that we could do with Milwaukee River Keeper because you don't have this, you don't have that." But it's opened up a conversation. And they are using the book just as you're describing to say, "Oh, how about this? How about that?" I can see a hand just got up. Go ahead.
I can say
one location where there is definitely an accessible kayak lounge,
Yes?
which is by the School of Freshwater Science. At the end, there's that, I think it's Freshwater Science
The
Bar.
Harbor Plaza, yeah.
And then on Water Street, just kind of north of
The park, the,
Planned Parenthood, they were supposed to put in an accessible kayak launch there as well.
so, there are some accessible, you can, to me, I think it meant, can I like drive my pickup truck so I can put the boat in, put the kayak in the water kind of accessibility. And it's true that it is accessible in that respect. But as Dorothy has just mentioned, like a moving boat, a person who maybe doesn't, needs some support for getting into something and you don't want to go in the drink. That was something my grandpa used to say when we go out fishing, you don't want to go in the drink, you got to stay in the boat. That we could do a better job with that, and as you said, there can be communication disabilities, or there could be cognitive or other kinds of disabilities that might pose challenges to folks. But you're absolutely right, there are some accessible put-ins. We looked carefully at the Milwaukee Riverkeeper map, which is, there is a Milwaukee water trail and the Milwaukee Riverkeeper map. If you go to their website, I liberally took and cited all of the locations that they have identified. And that resource, in the same way that we were looking for places to eat, from the perspective of accessibility from the water, that map is more organized around things like barnacle buds. If you're on the water and you want to get out to use a bathroom or use a restaurant, accessibility in those terms as well. Jenny has already mentioned we're both fans of the state parks and forests. Before doing this book, Jenny knew, but I didn't know that we have a state forest in the city. And we just recommend once a season or once a month, go out and visit a state park or forest, try to get into your local park weekly, but try to move your body every day and just focus. Okay, this is, we point out that little spire is the water tower on the North Avenue Water Tower.
Reservoir Park.
And so this is one of the highest points in the city. Yes, Reservoir Park. So we already got it. Yeah, I was like trying to do the build up and yeah, I know that one. I don't know that this is super accessible because it's pretty steep. Yeah.
If you go at it from the north side of the park, then it's a more gradual incline. But yeah, if you park on North Avenue, you need to go up vertically quite quickly.
There's a ramp as well as stairs.
There is a ramp, but I know it's supposed to be 12 to 1 for ADA compliance, but I was just walking it, and I was like huffing and puffing, and I thought, oh my gosh, if I were trying to navigate using, mobility device, I might not make it all the way to the top today. So, yeah, I love that view. And this one has another little gimme here, but this is the Victory Garden Initiative in Harambe, and this is a food forest that neighbors, while I was there visiting, people came and picked fruit, and they were picking vegetables and nuts and things that just grow for anyone in the community to come and enjoy. And kind of tying in with what Dorothy was talking about a little bit, we all deserve, every type of body is heir to the green spaces, parkland, and water. This is one, this recently had a fish ladder built into it, which is a kind of accessibility ramp for fish. Makes it, there is a waterfall. This is the Kletch waterfall. And at Kletch Park, yesterday was a sturgeon celebration because the sturgeon are now spawning. Cheryl Nen said that they have like little radio transmitters in some of the fish, and 9 of them have already passed through. And one of them was seen in Lincoln Park yesterday, so it was very auspicious. But since dams were put into our river systems, some fish can't jump up and over them, and they don't have access to spawning areas further upriver from that. And so at Kletch Park, they have put in a fish ladder, which is, like I said, a kind of a meander that goes around, and it makes it possible for sturgeon to access 20 more spawning grounds than they were able to last season. So that's a little happy story about our sturgeon relatives. Who are older than, sturgeons are older than dinosaurs, and when the comet came and wiped out the dinosaurs, it didn't wipe out the sturgeon. You know, they're just like, they are survivors. And I also realized, like 14,000 years ago, where we are right now had a mile of ice, right? The glaciers were here. So the Great Lakes are only 14,000 years old, or I mean, no more than 14,000 years old. And that means that the sturgeon had, you know, they were surviving in the oceans, and they found their way up into this place. And anyway, it's a delight that we're seeing sturgeon navigating into Milwaukee waters again. Okay, so this is a pretty iconic image of the Hone Bridge. So where would I have to be taking this photo? Lakeshore State Park, that's right. Yeah, and so right behind me is the red signal light for the entrance into the Kinnickinnick Basin. So that's Jones Island on the left. 1 in 4 U.S. adults has a disability, and 1 in 7 U.S. adults has a disability related to mobility. And I just have to add that I had a hysterectomy 3 weeks ago, and I am I was gonna say, hey, let's go for an easy walk right after this, because every time I see Jenny now, I'm in the habit of like, oh, we should go over to that park over here. We haven't seen that one yet. How come you didn't tell me about this park? I tried to go for a walk the other day because she's like, well, why don't you go and check out the Forest Exploratory Center on your own, Karen? And I jumped out of my car, and I didn't even, my brain thinks that I can go on an easy walk, but my body's not quite there yet. And so we're all kind of temporarily able to, or we kind of can flow in and out of different ways of being, of having the ability to do certain things. And writing a book like this had made me sensitive to it, that the world, the universe has ways of gently reminding me about being sensitive to accessibility and listening to your body. Okay, I can't believe there was a guy playing a guitar the day that I went, and I was like, oh my God, I have to snap this photo. Bradford Beach, yeah, the place to see and be seen. Go faster. Okay, these are the Scotty Swannies. Juneau Park or Veterans Park. That's my beautiful sister and I. I was just here yesterday. There's a hint for you. At the beginning of the Sturgeon Walk was in Lincoln Park. And I love that we are starting to see egrets and things return to these natural spaces, because they weren't always.
I saw a lot of herons while we were researching this book, and I was thrilled because prior to doing this book, I'd only ever seen them on the sticks, like at Girl Scout camp. So to just see a great blue heron in the middle of the city, it's amazing.
We were both in the great blue heron Girl Scout Council in Waukesha County, well, a longer ago from Ethan here. Where's this beer garden? Estabrook. All right. Where's this waterfall? Lake Park.
Really?
Yeah, it's often dry. And you do have to kind of, this is not a particularly accessible route to get there, but it's part of the beautiful park there. Another iconic. This is Arboretum, Rotary Arboretum.
That's the gateway to the Greenway, too.
The gateway to the Greenway. Everyone deserves, I'm just getting my propaganda in, everyone deserves fresh food, green spaces, clean water and air. Soldiers, National Soldiers Home. And I love this story of how, and you referenced this, how after the Civil War, we had people who were struggling and suffering, and a bunch of women raised money and built, there's only 3 of these in the country, and this is one of the first ones. And it just gives me hope that, like, even when we think, oh my gosh, how could we ever, have the research? We couldn't do that. It's like, well, you can if you have the will to do that. And I think we can do things like this again. This is my watershed where I live. This is the Kinnickinnic River.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. It is, I think it's a D-. The Riverkeeper came out with a river health report for 2022, the most recent data available. And it's getting better, but this river was very industrialized and concrete, there's a lot of concrete, as you can see. And so it facilitates runoff, it facilitates some of the pollution. So I have a dream of sturgeon working their way up the Kinnickinnic River to here and beyond. And you can see that they have been deconstructing some of the concrete in the Kinnickinnic Riverway between here and the Home Bridge. But this is what it looks like, not too far from where I live. This is one of those ADA accessible boat launches, this part of it here. But again, maybe because it has kind of two legs and you would put your craft in between that, you're maybe less likely to go in the drink when you get in, as Grandpa would say. And that was at the Harley-Davidson Museum. I've been hanging out with the Milwaukee Health Department, and we talk about the built environment, and we're here as part of the inclusivity group for League of Women Voters, but the built environment should be designed as inclusively as possible, using these concepts of universal design that anticipate what people will need and build that in ahead of time rather than trying to do an add-on afterwards. Here's another guinea, Three Bridges Park. I think it's McGovern. Oh, okay. Jenny thinks it's McGovern.
You want to take a vote? Is it McGovern? Raise your hand.
It might be Lincoln. I may have said that wrong, but I'm trying to think of. Okay. All right. The actuary over here is checking my work. You should recognize these iconic domes. The only, they're conoidal or something like that. They aren't quite geodesic domes, and so they're the only in the world. Someone had mentioned this input. This spiral thing is part of a park that has recently been put in. This is where the Riverkeeper boat tours take off from, because it's right by the School of Freshwater Sciences. And so this is the Harbor District, yep, at the end of Greenfield Avenue. It could have been, because Washington Park does have those beautiful, and this was a principle that Olmsted followed of, beautiful curves in nature. This is actually Mitchell Park. The whole park system is eligible for the National Historical Register, but for reasons like political reasons, or if you get historical registry, then you are limited in the other kinds of development that you can do. Golf courses. Here's a straight line though. Oak Leaf Trail, and this is not far from Riverside Park and the Urban Ecology Center is right to my right. I believe this is Riverside Park. It's trees, it's hard to tell. And this is something I think in terms of accessibility and safety, because we have had some conversations, especially recently, about like what makes you feel safe in public parks, and something about overgrowth and not if there could be a tiger in there for all I know, or some other kind of predator, and grooming and maintaining our parks as they were intended to be maintained is an important part of having a nice accessible space in the park as well.
Actually, they really want to have a lot more native plants and not have things cut down and cut back to promote more wild vegetation, native and as well as wildlife.
Even native plants need a plan and maintenance, and we're going to get there. We should get there. This is I think the smallest park in the book. It's called Saveland Park, and it used to be an amusement park. And it's got this tiny little pond behind this enormous tree, and these two kids were having a snack there, and I was like, oh, I snapped a picture. And then I think she saw, like, who's that weirdo taking a picture of us? And I was like, oh.
That's in Bayview, right?
It's like Tippecanoe. It's just south of Bayview. And these are the iconic image of Andrews Park. And this, I had to find the headwaters of the Kinnickinnic River. I was like, where are those? Because I had to find the headwaters of the Mississippi and whatnot. And I think looking on Google Maps, this is where I thought it would be. And it's a public space that's not far from the park right there. The school is right there. 10% of Milwaukee land is dedicated. Virginia Small told me this data, and it's less than the national average. And most Milwaukee residents live within 1 mile of a park. The north side is less so.
So you're talking about the city, not the county?
The city of Milwaukee. This is another parkway. This is the Kinnickinnic River Parkway. And then this is my last slide of just cool stuff coming up that are walks and paddles that I'm going to be going to, and I wanted to make sure you had access to that as well. So I'll just hand this back over.
I'm trying to remember any questions that I didn't get answered in what you talked about, and I can't think of any. We could start with any questions from the audience, and then something will jog other people. So what did you think? Have you been to many of these parks?
No.
Are you enticed into going out to some of these parks?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. That's good news.
When you were walking, I'm kind of crazy on this lately. Did you see coyotes a lot of places or not?
I have seen coyotes in Humboldt Park, and in our backyard we have a fox that lives. We live near Humboldt Park.
So what are your suggestions for, I know little about them. Will they stay away from you? Do they like noise? What's the best way to
I usually just turn and go the other way. If I'm being honest, I have my own dogs with me, so I don't
Yeah.
want to fight to break out amongst
Yeah.
the canines. So I usually just
So they
turn
never
around and go.
follow you?
No, I've never been
Okay.
followed. And
Okay.
like in Embarrass Park, we have like our own little coyote that limps, like it has an injured paw, so we know it's the same coyote because you can see it limping around. I've seen it in Washington Park, so it gets around, but I've never known it to chase people or dogs or provoke any sort of fight. So I think my advice would be to just pick a different direction. If there are coyotes in it.
I live close to Grant Park, and I bought the house without realizing I was close to Grant Park. And I bought it before the real estate market went crazy. So I was really lucky, extremely lucky. Of course, I can't get through the Seven Bridges stuff, but that's okay. We have deer, and the deer live in Grant Park and in the cemetery across the street from me. And I've seen a fox, 2 foxes, that were very carefully going through my yard. They started in my neighbor's yard. One would stay there, and the other one would carefully go across and wait at the next tree at the lot line. And then that one, when it looked around and didn't hear anything, I guess, it went on. And then the one back here started going across. It's really fun to watch them. We've had turkeys, and there are turkeys living in Grant Park. And the turkeys, fortunately, have left us alone. But one day, my neighbor Cara saw out by the garage for the school behind our houses, there was a half-eaten carcass and lots of feathers. And we never had another turkey show up in our yard after that. But that's one of the wonderful things about the parks, is that they provide a home, not just for the little bugs and the little birds. I shouldn't even say not just, because they're all so precious and so valuable. But it's also the larger animals too. And I have seen foxes. I have not seen the coyote. But I've heard that in an urban area they get enough food that they're not really looking to eat somebody. I would worry about that, I guess. But who knows? I mean, they eat turkeys. Yeah.
No. The DNR has an excellent page on coyotes and how to engage with coyotes and haze them. They will not hurt you. They're curious. And if anyone has any questions about it, I'd be happy to talk to them afterwards. So.
That sounds great, yeah. So have you got a website? Okay, well, they don't have a website yet. Yeah, the QR code.
And it does have my email, our email address. Which is easy.
I have a question. So in downtown Milwaukee, there's a nice walking trail along the river. Is that associated or connected or called a park, or is it just the walk along the river?
It's called the Riverwalk.
The river walk. But is it
called the Riverwalk at their,
And Père Noël, or not Père Noël.
Oh, Pierre Marquette.
Père Marquette, the other father, Father Christmas, Father Marquette. Père Marquette, I mean, there are some parks, and Cathedral Square and Red Arrow Park. I didn't feel like it was safe to even walk around downtown, and because of traffic. And so when we were like, well, which parks do we want to focus on? We're like, why would I take a bus into downtown? I mean, if I'm in downtown, I'll go to one of those parks. But there's so many things like out in the neighborhoods that we really wanted to get to. So we kind of intentionally, there was a time when I had written up some descriptions about like Wisconsin Avenue and the historic buildings and the library and you know the Central Library, and I was like, I don't know, this isn't the natural world, this isn't necessarily, this is like a bunch of rich beer barons and stuff, and I don't know that that is what I want to include in this book, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to clarify though, when you say you didn't feel safe, you mean traffic-wise, not personal safety-wise.
For me, and I do recognize, we are speaking from our judgment of whether it felt safe for us, personal safety-wise, but we were also thoughtful of, so yes, it was about traffic.
Okay.
And we were co-writing this book with Marjorie, who uses some mobility devices, and we would think like, would Marjorie feel safe here? Would this be too much for Marjorie? And so that was, yes, that's where I was going from. Can you say more about?
Yeah, I'm really excited about the bump outs that they've been installing. I'm very hopeful about the future of like safety in terms of navigating the city in that respect. I think, yeah, we have to acknowledge that the reckless driving is an issue, and not just like the extreme cases where a police chase is provoked, but just kind of our driving culture in general is just not very pedestrian friendly. So I'm very hopeful that that's turning. I love seeing the investments in the traffic calming architecture and protected bike lanes and kind of reprioritizing non-car transportation. So I think that when our second edition comes out, that should be something we should talk about. And I hope that we will have a better story to tell. But yeah, in the more heavy traffic areas, you need to use caution crossing the street. Just because there's a crosswalk doesn't mean people are going to stop for you. Just because the light turned red doesn't mean that people are going to stop. You really do have to be a defensive pedestrian, and that is worth talking about. So I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
And I do want to talk about personal safety too, because that has come up as questions, and Jenny put it well that like it's a public health emergency that people have a sense of entitlement to go as fast as they can, regardless of what's going on. And I think we also have a public health emergency in terms of accountability. People are doing things and feel entitled to do things that infringe on other people, and it doesn't always feel safe to have those conversations. And do you mind if I share your story why don't you talk?
So, are you talking about the Darris Park? Yeah, so one of the things our local neighborhood has kind of been on the case with our aldermen and local police representatives about is large groups of people coming in and occupying the park, having a huge party, kind of breaking all the rules, basically bringing alcohol, tons of trash, like being destructive towards public property. And it's difficult to get the police to take it seriously, to respond quickly. And in our neighborhood, some newer residents, bless them, decided to try and confront some strangers about their noise in a car that was unoccupied, and they were assaulted. And they were cited. I mean, they were so entitled that they punched this couple and then sat in the park and continued to barbecue for another 90 minutes, knowing full well that the police weren't coming anytime soon. So these people did get the license plate number and they were able to have some accountability, but it has been a huge, huge battle. And I share this story very carefully. I don't want to discourage any of you from confidently occupying the parks, but if you do see a very large group of people who obviously don't care about any sort of rules, who are, letting their kids run amok and throw their trash on the ground or being destructive, then that's the answer to your personal safety question. That's your cue to pick a different park for the afternoon. Is that a question?
Yes.
Did I see?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I mean, you did a lot of walking and a lot of looking and thinking about each park and area that you were in. That's obvious from the book. If you were to name your favorite places, maybe one or two, surprises that you didn't know about before you began this project, that I would love to know what those were and why. And then what were your biggest concerns and disappointments about either the state of the parks. I mean, you mentioned here about these large parties.
Yeah.
If there were other concerns that you had about what might need fixing or improving within the park.
Yeah.
Just to share a little bit of that.
Sure, I'll go first. The pleasant surprise was just how much adaptive equipment there were. Like when I had a young child who's now 20, adaptive playgrounds weren't really a thing, but I was surprised at how many playgrounds I would come across, like adaptive swings and just more inclusive playgrounds for children, even on the north side. I think the Harriet Tubman Park or Indigenous Peoples Park has adaptive swings, and especially on the north side being kind of notorious for being underserved. To see that kind of inclusive infrastructure was very promising. The thing that drives me nuts is the phenomenon where the bathrooms get locked.
Yeah.
And then the citizens complain because the bathrooms are locked, so to make them happy, a porta potty is brought in. So we are intentionally cutting people off from the dignity of a sanitary flushing toilet, and I can't imagine that it's saving money. It has to cost more money to bring in a porta potty than to just maintain the bathrooms that we have. And they do get unlocked for special events like the farmer's market or whatever, so this phenomenon of locking bathrooms really just drives me insane. I would rather share the bed, like it all stems back to the neighbors wanting to keep the wrong kind of people out of the bathroom, and I would rather just share the flushing toilets with whoever needs a flushing toilet than to lock it. Because I'm not taking my potty training toddler to a place that only has a porta potty. I'm not taking my, friends and parents with mobility challenges to a place that only has a porta potty. So, is there a question in there?
I was going to applaud you for that. I was reluctant to bring that up because I've noticed and had the same issue. In fact, in the parks that I visit, they are no longer providing porta potties because there's been such a vandalism problem. So now there's just plain no restrooms.
Yeah, it's a real game.
And you have to drive 5 miles as a female instead of picking a tree.
Yeah, thank you.
And which is really totally unacceptable. So thank you for bringing that up.
And that's exactly the kind of thing that you need to talk to your county supervisor. Because even though a lot of these parks are in the city of Milwaukee, they really are functioning as part of Milwaukee County. And the whole idea of this, they call it the emerald necklace. The idea was to have, this continuous sort of greenery around the whole county. And Milwaukee County is not that big. I think we've done a magnificent job of what's there. And I wanted to make sure to talk to you about voting. After all, this is a League of Women Voters function. But one of the things you can do is when you find out that there's going to be some activity, some growth in the parks, whatever, or not, you should go in and ask for everything you want. Because the reason we have the good parks that we do now are because those socialists back at the turn of the century asked for everything. And Homebridge, by the way, is named after a mayor who was a socialist. There's nothing wrong with socialists, so when somebody wants to fight with me about it, we'll do it outside. But I wanted to mention that it's really, really important to keep your eyes peeled. And if there is a Friends of the Park group, and I know there are for probably a dozen different parks, maybe more, I'm not really sure. And that's what you can put in the next, It's in there? Okay, I didn't get that far then.
The Milwaukee County Parks website has a list of the friends groups that may not be inclusive of all.
Yeah, you need to get involved in that and take the kids along. It's grandkids, brothers and sisters, whatever. But get the younger people involved. And I wanted to mention something that can happen, but didn't, because people love those parks. We had a county executive a while back, Chris Abley. Chris Abley went to the state legislature to get approval to sell Milwaukee County assets. Okay. Without even having public hearings and without contacting the county board. People went ballistic. I saw people on the county board who had never been emotional before about something, but they were about the parks. And we heard from a lot of people, and that's really important.
We've been fighting that here in Tulsa for quite a while.
Oh, yeah.
Because they've wanted to sell off a lot of the county grounds.
Don't let them do it, yeah. Well, if I were there, I would. But it's important that we not sell off that future. Because what we're looking at now is not something that could be built today. Absolutely not. And when we have the chance to build something, we should build it and build it right and do it to the full extent that we want. So, Mr. Abley did not get his chance to sell off land, but what happened was there was a general uprising that any piece of land that was not already marked as parkland, which is almost impossible to get unzoned as parkland. If it's zoned as parkland, it's solid. Communities that had parkland in them but weren't zoned that way did it. And so he had nothing to sell. And I was really, I was just so amazed to see how much solidarity there was with the people who otherwise might just say, oh, well, it's a developer and we need the tax base. No, we don't. We need the parks. We need the parks more than we need the tax base. And I think there are more problems in the parks than the issue about restrooms. And those are the kinds of things that Friends of the Parks can work on and come up with some solutions, hopefully, and then get the money for it. And it's really down to money. Becky.
You had mentioned about that you're seeing more adaptive equipment now in the park. So in the 2010 ADA standards, it now requires that playground equipment have so much adaptive equipment. State and local governments, they were to look at their parks after that was passed and evaluate them to see if they are in fact accessible for the equipment and that out there. The parks, period, the pathways and all of that. And they were to put together a transition plan. Not that all of that's going to be done right away, but anything new, and I really can't emphasize this enough, if there's talks of a new park being built, get involved with that because you want to make sure that they are indeed including those adaptive play components as part of that, which they should do, but sometimes it is missed, I have to say that. So it was a good thing that you brought that up.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up as well. I did not know that there was a mandate for it, so that definitely explains how comprehensive it's becoming. It's good to know that we really do need to advocate to make sure that mandate is adhered to. Thank you very much. More questions?
So, do you have an idea? You said you're going to do another book. What parks?
Oh gosh, yeah. I don't know. I don't know. We would take suggestions. Deneen. We floated Deneen. So yes.
I grew up in that area.
I'll tell you right now, second edition is very accessible, especially if we can get them to unlock the bathrooms. But nice flat paved trails, it really does take over. So thank you.
So the two state parks are Haven Woods and the one down by Summerfest.
Yes.
One's a forest and the other's a park, but yes.
Okay. And then I heard the talk about the county. Are there any city parks or are all the rest of the parks county parks?
So there's a collection of 52 that are called playfields, and those are kind of owned and managed by the Milwaukee Public School District.
Okay.
And there's an interesting history behind those, and it has to do with making sure that small school children have an accessible place in their neighborhood to play sports and whatnot. As far as like city-owned and managed parks,
I mean, they're like Denham Park is a park, but it's not.
They call them tot lots. When I worked at the city, there were 82 of them throughout the city, but they're small, they're on a lot.
Okay.
And some of them do have equipment, like the new one, I think that is the city one, that's on KK by Connect, what am I talking about? You can see it's still not done yet.
Zilber.
Oh, yeah, Zilber Park, yes, that's exactly what it is. I think that was a county before, but then I know the city was involved in that as well.
And there's a lot of hardscape, and I mean, it's been under construction, and I just drove past it recently. I can't think of my head.
I think there's a city park as you turn off Water Street to make the jog to Kane, going north out of downtown. It's up on a little hill. It is very small, but it's a very nice little park, and it's, you know, maybe not a place for walking per se, but it's a nice little retreat. And I think there's another city park down near the entryway to the Lakeshore State Park. Near there's a restaurant on the corner. I can't remember, Sail Walk. Maybe not. I don't remember the name. But they are small and they are kind of tucked away.
Mentioning that area in the Couture building, and we fudge a little bit when we say that all of these are accessible by transit, because how do you get to Bradford Beach on transit? Like, the directions that I put in are like, bushwhack your way down the hill to get there, because we haven't gone out of our way. I mean, I'd like to see a circulator, you know, bus running, or streetcar extension or something. It's appalling that we haven't, you know, I mean, I think it comes back to, we don't want those people to have access to the public space here. And I mean, I think that's, it's designed to be a car-centric way of accessing the lakefront, and that's not my favorite.
And bringing up the things about the park, or about the traffic, in an urban area, it's definitely much better to have buses that provide the transit, much better. The other organization that I know of, I mean, besides Disability Justice, which I am the director of, but the other organization I know that is very interested is the Wisconsin Bike Federation. Bicyclists are killed by cars, and I shouldn't say it that bluntly, but fact is that if you're on a bike versus somebody in a car, you're at an automatic disadvantage. But I think we need to be looking at where we can get more money, or through taxation probably, for the bus company, because we want more people to come to the parks. And I like that about what's in their book. I was surprised to see it, because people usually don't, just ignore it. And that's not the best way to go. The best way to go is to say, this is here, use it. And the more it gets used, the more the argument can be made that we aren't adequately funding the bus system, and we should be. People with disabilities, any number of disabilities, use the bus system. But getting to work is hard. Getting to recreation is hard. Getting to church is hard. Shopping is hard. And as more people age, there's going to be more and more people with impediments, impairments, disabilities. And there's, you know, I'd like to get people to not think of the word disability as something pejorative, because it really isn't. It's just it's an identifier. But the reality is that we all, at any point in time, at any age, no matter where we are, we could develop a disability or acquire one. That means that we need to depend on our community. And the way we structure a community to be valuable and supportive is through our tax dollars and through our elected representatives. And it's worth getting to know your elected representative. I actually had a phone call from the county executive who said, we're gonna put new asphalt on one of the roads that goes through Grant Park and down to the beach. It gets used a lot, and I just about fell through the floor. I didn't imagine that. I didn't expect it, but it does help to get to know your elected officials. And I just call them up and ask them to go to coffee or something. It's simple to do, and as you get to know them and they get to know you, things can happen. And things can happen. That's part of growing our communities stronger, more effective, and just more pleasant to be in. We have so many things in this area that are just absolutely wonderful. And I agree totally about the state parks. Our state parks also were put together by socialists. Not all of them, but that's something that we cannot duplicate today. We have ancestors to thank, and we have to make sure that we're thinking about us being the ancestors and leaving behind things that we're so proud of that we know are going to last another 100 years. So I got another question, Mary?
Yes, I know the city of Milwaukee was negatively impacted by changes in revenue sharing from the state. And I'm wondering about that impact on Milwaukee County and the parks, and if there is a pathway towards restoring some of that revenue that was taken away.
That's a question for a totally different place and time. It would take a long time to go through all that.
But it'd be a great debate, huh?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you one thing, but you're already a league member. There are program groups, and one of the things that I follow for the league is DEI and consumer protection. There are groups that do natural resources. The group that does natural resources looks at all the legislation that's coming out. And we sometimes, even though it's not public, apparently somebody who gets them does provide copies of proposed legislation so that the groups in the league can look at it. Now, the league has grown. I know it's more than 3,000 people statewide now, which is tremendous. But I noticed also that there's a lot more activity. And the league is the place to learn how to do all this stuff. And you get to meet tremendous people at the same time. But that's really where a lot of the ideas begin to collect and begin to get, I guess you want to pass them on to legislators, and that's it's a long process, and it's slow, but boy, it is so satisfying. It is incredible. Once you know what's going and you have a good idea what's coming up next, you can be ready for the craziest stuff. And I think that if you aren't already a member of the league, is there anybody here who isn't that wants to raise a hand? Becky. I think that the league is probably the premier group for anyone who wants to be engaged in their community, engaged in civic discourse, anything like that. Oh yeah, and that's a good thing.
Do you know what it is?
I got this on the internet for $5, but it's the League of Women Voters Impact on Issues. So research and position statements.
And there's also there's a website for the LWV.org or LWVWI for Wisconsin. So I would say that that's one thing you want to check out right away, and you can see how many. What do you call them? Chapters? They're not chapters. And that's a long story. I'm not going to get into it. and men can join the league. We've always had men in the league, yes, always.
Oh, did you want to say committees?
I'm sorry, what?
Were you referring to the committees?
No, but there is a website, a pretty robust website for the Milwaukee County League. And Milwaukee County is sort of spread over into Waukesha County a bit. But this actually, this impact on the issues is something that takes a lot of work to put together because there's a lot of discussion, and it's the discussion that is so important. We've got voting rights, election process, citizen rights, evaluating constitutional amendment proposals. There's also a whole slew of things under natural resources and social policy. And social policy includes things like criminal justice, healthcare, immigration, all kinds of things. And we've got enough people now. I mean, I've been on the legislative committee for a while, and we didn't have enough people to cover all the areas, and we do now. And the nice thing is you don't work on it alone, you work on it with one or two other people. And then we get together, we're having a meeting actually on Tuesday, to talk about what's going on in the legislature and what's likely to come up and what isn't likely to come up, and where do we go from here. And our priorities have really to do with voting rights. That's one of the big priorities for current years, yeah, but at least for the next 2 years. But I would suggest that if you're a member of the league, bring in somebody else also. Can use the extra hands, and I think you'd be well satisfied with it.
Dorothy, can I comment on something that just happened this past week that the league was part of?
Oh, yeah, right.
Which is that they are a plaintiff along with Disability Rights Wisconsin and a few other individuals filed a lawsuit against the Wisconsin Election Commission and the Wisconsin Election Commission Commissioner in regards to persons with disabilities, and more kind of specific, people that are blind and have low vision, not being able to vote in privacy as required, but as a privilege under the state constitution to vote in absentee on their own in secret, and asking more or less for electronic voting like there is provided in 12 other states. But that is something that the state of Wisconsin already does for vets and individuals that serve overseas. And they're saying, why can't we, the blind and low vision, be able to have that same right as well, which we should have under the Constitution?
The league's been involved in several of those cases. And it goes way back to when voter suppression became a thing. And it's ongoing, that's ongoing. So there's going to be probably a few more lawsuits, but at least at this point, the league could certainly use a donation for lawsuits, but more importantly, just having people who are knowledgeable about what's going on means that they can talk about it like Becky did. And that's important. That's really important.
There is a disability vote coalition that the league is a part of, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really gutsy to file a lawsuit. I think it's really important to support it. And, you know, if we have to do it again to something else, for something else, we will. Any other questions? I'm sorry. Any comments?
Very interesting.
So please, yes. Are you going to buy the second edition of the book?
I want to thank everybody for coming, and also the Outpost was incredibly generous with the bananas, and they are kind of ripe, so please feel free to take a bunch. You know, they're kind of in packets and bunches. and enjoy them and to your health. They're great to take on a walk. Nice nutritious treat while you're walking to keep your energy level up. And I don't want to see them spoil, so please feel free to indulge. And we need to feel free to stick around and talk and enjoy a beverage or a treat, but we do have to be out of the room by 3:45 for sure.